Cigar Company is your one-stop shop for all your cigar needs. Whether that's a brand new humidor, a box of those new cigars you've been waiting for, a top-of-the-line cutter or lighter, a place to enjoy the finest cigars and spirits with friends, or the only cigars grown right here in the Sunshine State, we've got you covered. Come visit one of our retail locations for the ultimate cigar experience. Visit us online at coronacigar.com.
It's been a really long time. What's my line?
How are you doing? No.
How are you? How is that cigar?
No.
You know, how's it go?
How about
that cigar? That sounds. Let's try that. How about that cigar? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Corona Cigar Studios for episode 273 of How About That Cigar Live. Thank you so much for joining us live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and live on
Rumble.
So grateful, as always, having you guys with us after a much-needed break for the holidays. So thanks for coming back to us.
Yeah,
after.
We appreciate you guys.
And we hope all of you guys had a fantastic holiday season.
Yeah.
Some time to rest.
No drama, just love.
Hopefully just love, no drama. I don't know. Yeah. There's always a little drama. We had some, wasn't severe. Nothing, severe. It's, it's life. What are you going to do?
Well, we had a Christmas party at my sister's.
Yeah.
And the only drama we had was we ran out of eggplant and parmesan.
That's honestly, that's pretty good. If that's the only drama you had,
yeah,
you're doing great.
Everything was good.
Doing great. Guys, thanks again for being with us this evening. Join us in the comments. Let us know what you're smoking. Let us know what you're drinking. We are so grateful to be back with you. And of course, if you're listening after the fact on the audio podcast, thanks so much for making How About That Cigar a part of your regular audio podcast rotation. So many familiar faces in the comments. Love seeing you guys out there. Joe Grow, Matt Brugger, Dax, Raul sitting right here. You're already in the comments. Tino's out there saying hello. So grateful having you guys with us. If anybody had any interesting Christmas gifts, keep it clean, I guess. But if you got any interesting Christmas gifts, throw that in the comments too. And your favorite Christmas meal, throw that in the comments. It's weird. I'm still kind of in the Christmas mood. I know it's already January 6th, but I'm in the Christmas mood. I really am.
So am I. I'm smoking Cigar Clown's Santa Clausy or Clowny Claus.
Oh.
So
yeah, I will say I shut off the Christmas music, so I'm not listening to Christmas music anymore. But
thank you.
It had a good run.
You started listening in like October.
Yeah, every year I'm one of those weirdos.
Oh.
I embrace it fully. I love Christmas music, and I refuse to just listen to it for a couple weeks out of the year.
So I do it for the week before, and that's it.
No. For months, I love Christmas music. Some of the best music ever written.
I got a Night Watchman sword cane.
Night Watchman sword cane.
That's pretty. What are we?
Got a
Tino Brown?
Got a cane with.
We could call you Tino Brown now.
A cane with a sword in the handle. Just don't bring it with you to the airport. By mistake. Make sure to leave that one at home.
Hey, I know that guy.
After Thanksgiving, Christmas music was okay. David, yeah. It's okay after Thanksgiving, but it's even better before Halloween.
No, it's not.
That's
craziness. That's madness. Madness. I say madness. So, David, are you ready for our little trip in April?
Where are you guys going? Oh, are you going to the?
We're going to Virginia.
Virginia, yeah. That'll be a good time.
It always is.
All right, little sports.
No,
the NFL playoffs are set.
Fuck. My Jets season is finally over.
The Jets had a rough go.
Terrible. And then he decides to show up the last fucking game of the year.
Oh, Skip.
Lights out.
Skip's here to see if Postania made the end of the year list.
Well, you're gonna have to come back in 2 weeks.
You're gonna be disappointed because we're not doing our cigar of the year list tonight, but we are going to talk about.
We can talk about some stuff.
Some stuff related to why the lists
Exists.
exist.
And thanks, Skip, for joining us.
And
today.
so, yeah, and thanks for joining us. And just some thoughts about, lists, why they exist, why we do them, what should we do, what shouldn't we do,
how we're going to tweak our list this year, how we're going to evolve. We're going to evolve. We're going to evolve the.
We're going to get philosophical.
Top 10 list.
Yeah,
I have my notebook and everything.
because we try to grow and learn as we go through life, and learn from mistakes, learn from successes, learn from everything. And
I learned that I can't use crayons on this book. I had to use a pen.
Well, it's easier to read.
Forward.
It's easier to read when you write it in that bright blue Crayola color. So yeah, NFL playoffs are set. Both the Vikings and the Packers closed off their seasons in horrible fashion. The Packers lost to the Bears, which at Lambeau Field. The Packers played absolutely terrible, and the Vikings played absolutely terrible against the Lions. But the Lions are insane. I don't know what they're smoking or drinking or shooting or what. I'm not accusing any of their players of, doping or anything. I'm just saying it's unreal how well they're playing considering everybody's hurt.
Vikings got out coached.
Dan Campbell's really good. But Kevin O'Connell's really good too.
Yeah, but they got out coached.
But it was it was just a beatdown. And
the worst loss of the year, I think.
It was the worst loss of the year for the Vikings, I'm pretty sure. And and the Packers, not only did the Packers get beaten by the Bears at Lambeau Field, but Christian Watson tore his ACL, so he's done.
That might hurt you next year too, huh?
He'll probably be okay for next year. And Jordan Love hurt his elbow. And our backup quarterback, Malik Willis, hurt his hand. So if something happens to Jordan Love and he can't play, Malik Willis may not be able to play either.
So who's your backup to the backup?
I don't know. I don't know.
David, what I said earlier was, are you ready for the boil?
The boil.
The boil.
Or as people in the South would say, the ball.
Season's going to be over next week for both our teams.
So the Packers have to play Philly in Philly.
Yep, and the Vikings have to play the Rams
in LA. But the Rams I think the Vikings are going to do fine against the Rams. I think that the Packers are going to have a really tough time against Philly. I just don't see it as much. Of course I want to see the Packers win, but I like to see myself as a logical football fan. Yeah. And on paper, I just don't see the Packers beating the Eagles in Philly. I don't see it happening. I would love it if they have an upset, just like they upset the Cowboys last year in Dallas.
That was beautiful, by the way.
So moving on to hockey, the Wild they're okay. They're slipping a little bit, but they got some injury issues. Kaprizov, I think, is going to be back soon-ish, so that should help. But they slipped a little bit, pretty much right after our last show for How About That Cigar. Yeah, they lost like 3 in a row.
They stopped watching us. That's what happened. They lost their mojo.
There you go. And the Timberwolves are honestly, they're still like right in that mediocre middle ground.
Yeah, that trade really hurt us.
They're okay.
That trade, and it doesn't seem to be. The Knicks are doing okay, just like they were last year. They're not that much better.
Yeah, if the Timberwolves keep this up, I just don't see them getting a playoff spot.
No.
So, but you've got to earn a playoff spot. They're really not, they're not earning it. I don't think they're going to deserve it. So, what are you going to do about that?
It's only sports. We got to remind ourselves. It's only sports.
Well, let's I didn't even see, this is how out of practice I am. We haven't done a show in a couple of weeks, and I haven't even pulled up any of my stuff because I was going to start talking about Spirit of Mystery, and I didn't even have the thing ready to
happens to be a libation of the bourbon sorts
ready to read. So there we go. Pat. Right there is our Spirit of Mystery. Spirit of Mystery brought to us by our friends at Postania Cigars. Do you find yourself unsatisfied with the top 10 list from How About That Cigar? Are you wondering how cigars from Postania didn't make the HBTC list, but found their way onto other lists? Well, fortunately, you can be reminded every week with this Postania Cigars advertisement. Postania Cigars, the #1 unranked cigar in the industry. So this is a bourbon, and as you can see from this glass, Raul,
I was heavy-handed.
that's like a double.
Yeah. And tell me if there's something different right off the back.
Yeah, there's something. It's kind of funky.
It's been aging for a couple hours now.
Yeah, it's been sitting out for a couple hours. It's kind of funky, sweet, sort of like wet wood, like wet leaves, like you're walking through the forest in the fall and it just rained.
Yeah.
This is going to sound really stupid, but I smell bananas.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Fremunda. I smell bananas. I don't know. Drunk uncle pour. That. Yes, that is a drunk uncle pour.
We call it a friendly pour. I
right.
go with David.
It tastes really high proof. It tastes really hot.
Does it taste like a rye?
It's spicy. It's got rye in it. Maybe it's a high rye bourbon, or maybe it's just I don't. But yeah, it's got this spiciness that you typically get from rye. A little bit of a bite. Tastes like it's high proof.
Totally forgot what it was. It was so long ago I poured it.
It was. We've honestly, guys, we've been sitting here for like a couple hours before the show even started. We're all just exhausted. And we were sitting here before the show. It's kind of, well, I won't say you guys, but I was sitting here just kind of nodding off in my chair, with my chin down on my chest. Just
I was gonna tape it and then put it in there later. But.
So we'll find out what this lovely beverage is later on in the show. But we got some interesting ideas of stuff that we wanted to talk about tonight. Because, well, before we get into it, we'll jump in. We'll say this is, our main segment of the evening, and that is brought to us by Drew Estate. And Drew Estate has announced a new member of the Deadwood line of cigars, the Girl with No Name Lonsdale. This new cigar features a wrapper leaf from Mexico in a slim and elegant 7x44 Lonsdale format that promises a slow burn and nuanced smoking experience. The Deadwood Girl with No Name Lonsdale is presented in 20-count boxes with an MSRP of $11 per cigar and is available now at Drew Estate retail partners. For more information, please visit drewestate.com. All right. So, as you go through, as we went through the holiday season specifically, I actually took a lot of vacation time, not vacation time like my family and I went somewhere. Just I took paid time off from my day job.
He went into his
my cave of wonders.
Did you find Rogers there?
No. I just, and I had time to sit down and, go through, like putting together a cigar of the year list for 2024. And we had a lot of family in town, and I thought to myself, okay, I've got little pockets of time here and there between family events and stuff like that. And every time that I would have sort of a pocket of time and think about going to sit down and work on something like that, or sending Raul a text saying, hey, what was the name of that cigar that we were thinking about that we liked and whatever, I was just like, no, I want to spend time with my family. So that's what I did. And here we are. So we are going to do a cigar of the year list. We're not going to
2 weeks.
We're not going to publish it today or announce it today. We're going to do that on the 20th. But so then we were like, what the hell are we going to talk about tonight?
So we came up with the idea. What does that really mean? What is the best cigar of the year? What is your breakdown? What do you think your best cigar of the year is?
Yeah. And just sort of from a philosophical standpoint, we started thinking about, the whole WTF thing was just kind of a joke on our part, but it was, in WTF, instead of meaning for this particular show, instead of meaning what the fuck, we mean, what's this for? In other words, what do we do this for? What do we do cigar media for? What do we do this show for? What do we do cigar reviews for? If we're doing cigar reviews, what do we do a cigar of the year list for? Why do we do it? What's the point? And not only what's the point, but everybody's got a different system for how they do their list. Everybody's got a different system for the way they review cigars, the way they think about cigars, the way they interview people from the cigar world, and all different kinds of stuff. And just from a philosophical standpoint, we wanted to kind of talk through some of the whys.
Yep.
Because that's one of the things that Michael Herklotz says a lot that I really dig and I really identify with is he says, what is your why in this moment? And I always try to ask that when I'm going through stuff. What's the why? And if the why is lacking in clarity or
motivation,
then
let's rethink it.
Maybe rethink it. So that's kind of what we're going to go through tonight. Just, thinking about why we do it.
Jesus says we do it for the ladies.
We do it for the,
we do it for the mamacitas.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't, because I don't want to get shot.
Because
we're happily married. So.
Because there are chicks lining up around the block.
Yeah.
For how about that cigar?
What are you smoking?
Same thing you are. I'm just finishing up this catastrophic failure by Postania Cigars. Horrible name for a cigar, by the way. I just sent Mike a text a little while ago with a picture of me smoking this cigar, saying false advertising, because this cigar is not a catastrophic failure. It's actually very good. So I cry false advertising.
Yeah. Matt says to educate the uneducated. David says for a little information, but mostly for the camaraderie.
Yeah,
I like both of those.
Yeah, I like that.
Like both of these nuts.
But the show for us is, we want to get to know people from the cigar industry, and we want to know why they make cigars, in some cases it'll be somebody who's a cigar maker. In some cases it'll be somebody who sells cigars. In other cases
it might be a shop sell cigars, but they got a different view than just a salesperson.
Yeah. And how people got their starts, what motivates them. It's just like we're talking about that Michael Herklotz said, what is your why? And everybody's got a lot of great sort of angles on why they do what they do and how they do what they do. And
you have guys out there that will buy 3 cigars and they will go in their little corner and they will smoke it and they only drink water.
Yeah.
And they have their giant checklist and they mark it and they find moss from the north side of the barn and stuff like that. And you got guys that are out there just saying, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like this.
Yeah.
The rating systems
are
all different. But why? How do you come to that conclusion? Is it only cigars that are put out this year, or last year, or that year?
Yeah.
Is it cigars that you are new to you? Maybe, you have some cigars that are 15, 20 years old. I've never smoked.
Right. And that's a good what the hell was that for? Jay Davis is a good point. Cigar of the Year list provides a nice time capsule of the year. Now, I agree, Jay, that it can do that, and there are a lot of lists that do that. Some of them don't necessarily hit the mark on that particular thing in my experience, but I do agree that there are a lot of lists that do give you that time capsule thing, and that's one of the interesting things too. Coop, nobody reads Cigar of the Year list. That's so funny because I heard Coop mention that on one of his shows years ago, and he says it, jokingly. He says it in jest, but it's true. There are a lot of people that say, "Oh, nobody reads Cigar of the Year list," and yet you talk to anybody who publishes a cigar media website who puts out a Cigar of the Year list, and their Cigar of the Year pages have the highest traffic of any other page throughout the year. So obviously people out there read them.
Yeah.
But the whole
fake news, Coop.
The whole time capsule thing. So there are some out there that review cigars and do Cigar of the Year lists who they say our criteria is we're only going to review and we're only going to make eligible for our list cigars that were released in this calendar year. And by saying that, we're not faulting them in any way, shape, or form. We're just saying some people choose to do that. And I think that's fine if they want to do that.
Yeah.
But then there are, and that I agree, it's a really great snapshot in time that you can go back to 5 years later and say, oh, these are the cigars. Oh, I remember. Yeah, that was a big deal when that cigar came out. It was a major release or whatever. But then there are other lists, and not to pick on them, but they are, they can take it because they're the biggest, in the world. Cigar Aficionado.
Mm-hmm.
When, if you just this year's list, for example, you've got cigars that are on their top 25 list. You've even got cigars in their top 10 that are old cigars that have been on the market for a long time. And I'm not faulting them for that. It's their list and they're the biggest in the business. They can do whatever the hell they want. Mm-hmm. I think there's for me, my personal idea is that there's a happy medium somewhere in between. Just a cigar from any time period can be on your Cigar of the Year list versus the really tight window of it has to be released this calendar year. I feel like there's a happy medium in between there somewhere.
How about this? How about you put out the top 5 of this year and then you put the top 5 that you smoked this year?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then you marinate the group and you tell them this is from this year.
Yeah.
This is this year's one of the top 5, but it's in the top 10. And this is from whatever, 2017 or because there's a lot of cigar guys out there that are either new to cigar smoking that haven't smoked stuff from 2015, 2012. And when we do get a cigar like that and we smoke and we're like blown away by it,
right?
We're like, yeah, this is making my list, but it's not the year that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And you mentioned something before we went live about consistency.
Yes.
And I feel like that's really important. So talk about what you were thinking when you mentioned that word.
So there's some of the cigars let's just go back to Cigar Aficionado. They have El Norteño on there.
Norteño, yeah.
Right. So why did it make the list this year? Why aren't their lists consistent? Why?
Well, it's possible, and I would have to go back.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly certain that the Herrera Esteli Norteño has been on their list before in the past. But you made a great point of the fact that
they might discontinue that cigar.
From what I understand, that's on their list to be discontinued. That's on the chopping block by Drew Estate to be send that brand into dormancy.
Yeah, and we'll bring it back out in 5 years.
Probably.
Another thing with the consistency is some of these cigars come out right after the show, and they're slightly aged a little more. That first run always seems to pop. It always seems to taste so much better. And then you try the second, third run, and it's like, this is not the same cigar I had when it came out.
Yeah.
It's just, there's something else wrong with it. I don't know what it is. It's just not the same.
Yeah. So if a brand new release comes out in March and you go to your brick and mortar retailer, and let's say you're a cigar reviewer and you do a list and you go to your favorite brick and mortar retailer who happens to carry this new release that just came out in March. You go to that retailer, you buy 3 cigars. They all came from the same box, and that box and the pallet that it came to the States on were all from the same original production run after that blend was tweaked within an inch of its life, and the blenders and the people at the factory got it just the way they wanted it to be. And that's great. Now, you smoke those 3 cigars from that same box, from that same production run. You smoke them within a week or 2 of each other. You do all your notes. You love it. Everything about it is great. That's your number 1 cigar of the year. And then maybe 9 months later, maybe 2 years later,
when you want to refresh your memory, and
you go back and you buy some more.
Yeah.
And these cigars that you buy, it's the same, looks the same. It's got the same band, the same box, the price is the same, but maybe it's gone up a little bit over the course of 2 years. And you smoke it and you look at the notes from the first time you smoke it and you just try to call back in your memory like this. And you think I just don't feel like this tastes the same. And that's where your consistency comment hit me. Like, that is so true, that consistency is important and that's another reason why I think to myself, okay, it should be okay to put cigars on your list that came out a year ago, or that came out last year or 2 years ago. Now, personally, I think if you get much past like 3-ish years, then maybe that isn't so good at what Jay Davis mentioned about being a snapshot in time, like a time capsule. And that's why I do think it's important to keep it a little bit narrower. It doesn't have to be 1 year, but maybe going 3 years further back than 3 years might be a little bit of a disservice to the consumers that learn about cigars from you, if you're a cigar reviewer and you do this kind of thing, or if you're just just a show that talks to people in the cigar industry, that sort of thing. I think keeping it somewhat narrow it helps to not just broaden the focus to the point where people can't keep track anymore. David
brought up a good point. I'm going to paraphrase for you. So let's say you smoke a cigar. First time you smoke a cigar, you're with your best bud, you're on a lake, you're smoking it with your dad, you're smoking it at a boil, smoking it at an event, and how everything that you ate, your atmosphere, how you're feeling that day,
your mental
all
state
that plays into how you take in that cigar, how your palate is reacting to that cigar. So that has a play on too, and our palates do evolve, I think. I know cigars I smoked when I first started smoking 6-7 years ago, whatever the hell it was, I can't go back and smoke those anymore. I mean, I was getting $5 cigars back then, but they're not the same. So do we give them leeway to change a little bit? Do we give them that grace of saying it's not the same as I remember, but it's
still really good.
Still really good, but
I think especially when you're talking about cigars, and I actually have heard Skip talk about this a lot, that we're talking about cigars, hand-rolled premium cigars made with it's just tobacco, water, and vegetable gum. And as much as the blenders and the people, the factory managers and the people in the tasting room, they can get it close. And even Pete Johnson's talked about this. You can get it close, but over the course of 2 years, 6 years, 12 years, whatever it may be, you're never going to know for sure, because you can say, okay, let's take some cigars out of the aging room from that first production run. Well, how many years later are you doing that? 2 years later? 9 years later? Because they're going to taste different.
Yeah, we all know aging a cigar makes it smoother. Makes it creamier.
They all do the best they can and do the like factory made products. Like if you go someplace like this Yingling I'm drinking right now, it's it's one of the smaller production beers, but they still make a lot of this stuff. And it always tastes exactly the same. It always feels exactly the same. And if you are expecting that you're going to get that literally every single cigar through the end of time for your favorite blend, that it's always going to be perfect, then I'm sorry that's just not the case.
But unlike beer and whiskey, they have chemicals. They have a way to tweak it to get it back to original,
right?
Its original form or its original flavor.
Yeah.
That's just what Palmer was saying too.
Yeah.
But I've had cigars that have gotten better. I've smoked that.
Yeah.
When I first smoked the Norteño, I didn't like it. I thought it was too strong for me. It wasn't for me. Then I smoked it 6 months later. I'm like, ooh, this got a nice little punch to it. I like this. I bought a box. You know, so the cigar evolves. Also, it can get better. It can get worse. Your palate evolves. The situation, the event you're at, all has.
That's all a good effect. So you mentioned that a minute ago, and something popped into my mind. Like, you talk about like the difference between, and we'll talk more about this later, but like, you know, $100 cigar versus $10 cigar. But then you talk about experience or the place you're at. So for me, if it's the right people, you know, if I was by myself, probably not so much, but you know, with my family, with my son, with my wife, we're at a Twins game. That hot dog at the Twins game, sadly, a hot dog at a Twins game now is like $12. Yeah. But that hot dog at the Twins game, I will take that just about any day over the finest 5-star meal at the best restaurant in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Even though I know for a fact that that hot dog is mass produced.
It's got ass lips and pits in it.
Yeah, it's mass produced. It's mostly just salt and, you know, anus water and whatever else. And that if I were to go to that 5-star restaurant down the street in Minneapolis, I'm going to get fresh ingredients made by a talented chef that's like thoughtfully composed and all that. Give me, in most cases. Now there are just some times when you're in the mood for a 5-star meal and a great bottle of wine or whatever. But that doesn't mean that hot dog at the ball game wasn't a good experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we should think about cigars that way, that there's nothing wrong with the ballpark cigar experience. And there's nothing wrong with the 5-star meal, $100 cigar experience.
But how does that tie into top 10? How do you separate that? How do we put that in our list? You know, I mean, the first time I smoked a Black Irish, I was in the middle of the lake with Garrett.
Yeah.
The sunset coming up. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. So the next time I smoked it, the cigar was still good, but it just wasn't that experience.
Right.
You know? So how do you separate that? Do we trust our notes? Do we trust what we wrote 7-8 months ago?
I think as if you're going to review cigars, then I think you need to trust what you put on paper at the time you put it on paper.
I agree.
And that's why, like in the past, when we have done cigar reviews and cigar of the year lists, if there are ties in scoring, like, oh, there's 3 cigars that have a 91, so they could be somewhere in that like third place to 5th place range, but which one is going to get 3rd and which one is going to get 5th, even though they got the exact same score. So then what I would do is, if I still had some available in my own humidor, I go smoke them again and say, okay, I have the notes from back in March when I smoked it, but now in December, right before I'm going to do the finalization on the list, I'm going to smoke them again, those ones that are tied, and I'm going to do a tiebreaker sampling. But the fact is, because those cigars, it's not, absolute insane amount of age, like 6, 7, 8 months. Or it could be that I don't have any more in my own humidor and I got to go to a shop to buy them, or I got to reach out to one of my online retailer, trusted online retailers and buy some from them and have them shipped. So yeah, there are going to be differences, but for me, it's always about just trusting what I put on paper 6 months ago or whenever, and then doing tiebreakers later in the year.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal philosophy. I think there's a lot of people out there who have different ideas on the way they want to do reviews and scoring and lists and all that stuff.
And that goes back to kind of what I touched on earlier. Should we have 3 different lists? The cigar of 2024, the cigar that we revisited from 5 years ago. Should we have an event cigar? This cigar was phenomenal at this time.
Event
because
only
we're with here, yeah. You know.
Oh, an event. Oh, I see what you mean. Like I was at my friend's wedding, or I was at my daughter's wedding, or whatever it may be. Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it because yeah, go ahead.
When you go back, we talked about it earlier. When you go back, the movies, they have the picture of the year, they have the director of the year, they have supporting cast, they have fucking best music, whatever.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't the cigar industry do the same thing?
Well, like, I think the consumers do that sort of automatically. Like, we were talking about this. So this is one of the thoughts I had earlier today, is because I was looking at the Cigar Aficionado list, and I was looking even back at previous lists from How About That Cigar. And you see brands on lists from maybe not that long ago, and you're like, I don't know if that brand's in business anymore, or maybe they are in business, but they're really not doing very well, or they're just a catalog only brand now.
It's like a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. So then that's part of, and that sort of ties in with what Jay Davis said about a snapshot. So think about that in terms of the movies. So go back to, I'm pretty sure the year was 1998. And this is the one, there are many examples over the years of Best Picture, what won Best Picture. And then you look back at the movies that should have won, and you're like, oh my, how the hell did that happen? 1998, the winner for Best Picture was Shakespeare in Love.
Never heard of it.
Another movie that was nominated for Best Picture that didn't win, Saving Private Ryan.
Phenomenal movie.
And that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, snapshot in time, Shakespeare in Love. I remember seeing that movie with my wife. You know, it's a feel-good romantic comedy. You know, it's a fun little movie. But Saving Private Ryan is like almost 27 years later. Saving Private Ryan is still regarded as one of, if not the best, World War II combat film of all time. And Shakespeare in Love is like, yeah, it was a cute little comedy, and there's so many people today, 27 years later, that say Shakespeare in Love was a cute little movie that should never have won Best Picture.
And you can go, and if we want to go there, we can go generation wise. I know kids that are 18, 19 years old that's seen, Saving Private Ryan. They don't even know what the hell the other one was.
Right. And that's enough. Is it? So you go back to go back through Cigar of the Year lists, and they don't necessarily go back a really long ways as far as major publications or broadcasters, podcasters, but even for us, I'll call myself out. The first ever time that How About That Cigar published a Cigar of the Year list, 2019. And the Cigar of the Year on that list was, and is still, the Southern Draw Kudzu Lustrum. Still a cigar. I still have multiple of those cigars in my humidor. That cigar is still available for purchase. But no disrespect to those guys, but that company has seen a downturn in sort of, because there's this sort of phenomenon of the flavor of the month, where a brand gets really, really hot. And there are some brands that can sustain that for a long period of time. And there are other brands that aren't able to sustain that. Now, in some cases, brands aren't able to sustain that through fault of their own because they don't know how. That's not necessarily something that they're talented at as business people. And there are other brands that, fall out of favor just because
we're finicky.
And with social media, it's like what's new. I want to know what's next. What's the next big thing? And again, we keep coming back to that word, consistency. That it's consistency is not just the construction of the cigar and the tobacco that goes into it. It's the consistency of the approach of the company to the consumer. That doesn't mean the company's never going to change any design elements. The company's never going to change anything at all. But it means that they always have a very sort of uniform focus on the way that they are consistently and constantly approaching consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And
their product is consistent.
Yeah. And Jay Davis smoked a kudzu yesterday. It was great. And I agree. It's been a few months since I smoked one, but it was Cigar of the Year 5 years ago.
And I like the Rosa Sharon too.
Sharon also.
We're not picking on the brand, guys. We're not picking on the brand.
We are not.
We're just using it as a reference.
It's just an example. It's and if you go back at there, and there are so many, of what I consider mentors in cigar media, Coop and Cigar Dojo and the guys from Stogie Press, and you look back at some of their lists over the years, and there are going to be cigars on a lot of people's lists, myself included, that from a few years ago, it could be 2 years ago, it could be 12 years ago, and you see cigars on there and you're like, oh, I don't think they're around anymore. And yet at the same time, you'll see cigars on Cigar Aficionado's list that have, not only have they been around for a long time, they've been at some place or another on Cigar Aficionado's list in previous years. The Melanio, you saw that one just today. Yep. The Oliva. Now, granted, this was the Maduro, but the Melanio won Cigar of the Year in 2011. I'm sorry if anybody remembers exactly what year the Melanio won Cigar of the Year. Put it in the comments. But some form of the Melanio, whether it's a different Vitola or whether it's the Maduro versus the original, some form of Melanio has been on the Cigar Aficionado list multiple times. I want to say 3, maybe 4 times. And then you look at like the Brick House. That was number 10.
That's been around forever. Why is it just making the list now?
And maybe it's been on before. I honestly don't recall if some type of Brick House iteration was on the Cigar Aficionado list before.
Sun Country's a good cigar. It's only been around 3-4 years though. And
that's why I think their system at Cigar Aficionado does have a lot of merit. Because based on everything I know of the way they do things at Cigar Aficionado, they have people who go, and they have a limited sort of geographical area, but they have people who go and purchase cigars and bring them in and unband them and give them to the tasters to smoke. And that's why I think, to tie in with Jay's comment about Snapshot, there is a lot of merit in the way Cigar Aficionado does it, because that is sort of a snapshot, even though they're going to be getting their hands on cigars a lot of the time that they've already reviewed. And okay, maybe they haven't reviewed that Vitola. Maybe finally, who knows how many Vitolas the Brick House is available in? Could be 20 for all we know, and that is, in my mind, sort of a snapshot. And I see the comment from a YouTube viewer that CA puts whoever pays them the most in advertising. Now, I don't know. I don't work for Cigar Aficionado. I never have. From everything I understand, and again, I don't know. From everything I understand, all of the tastings are blind for when they do the review during the earlier parts of the year. But then when they as far as I know, they go back before they're about to compile and publish the list, and they do a retasting, but that retasting is not blind. So whether or not bias comes into play, I'm not going to speak to that. That's I have no idea.
So I like the judge. Is it
the judge? Yeah.
Cigar of the year for me? No, it's not. It's not the number one pick for me.
And it came out in what, 6 years ago?
Yeah,
something like that.
But another thing with Cigar Aficionado, since we're talking about them, they don't go where us nerds go. We hit some of those new brands that are coming out. We hit some of those smaller boutique brands. To his point, kind of, they stay to the mainstream. The companies that are that have been established, that have been around for a little while, that have some legs underneath them.
Yeah,
they're not hitting up these new guys like Domain and HDA that just came out last year.
Yeah. Well, and again, from everything I understand about the process, and I have talked to people who are connected with Cigar Aficionado. I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to call anybody out, but that the cigars, because the publishing house or the publishing office is for Cigar Aficionado in New York, and all the cigars that are purchased within a very small geographical area around New York. And there's a limited number of shops there, and they're not going to, there are some brands that just aren't going to be carried. And if the brands aren't carried at the shops where the cigar buyers go to get them, then those cigars aren't going to get reviewed.
Then I think that's unfair I think it's unfair to the industry that they do it that way.
I think it would be, I agree with you in a way that I don't think they do it
maliciously.
No, they
don't.
But I do think, especially in 2025 now, that Cigar Aficionado would serve themselves a little better and their readers a little better if they broadened things out a little bit. Maybe worked with an online retailer to, purchase some, or work with some brick and mortar shops, in other areas of the country and things like that, just to get a broader sense of what's in the marketplace.
They need to send some guys down to Florida.
Yeah.
Florida would be a great place for them to do that. And Brody, if you want to know my favorite cigar, tune in 2 weeks.
That's right. There was another comment. Somebody. Okay, so it was 20. Thank you, David. It was 2014. So that's already 11 years ago. 2014, the Oliva Serie V Milanio. Well, actually, that would have been 10 years ago, because the 2024 list came out. So the Oliva Serie V Milanio Figurado, that was the Cigar Aficionado Cigar of the Year. And then it is, and it's very common. You see, David also said Padron, Fuente, LFD, Altadis. Those
seem to be on the list one form or another.
They're on the list one form or another all the time. But you look at it from a pure mass market perspective and a pure availability perspective. There are very few cigar shops in the United States that you can walk into that they're not going to have one or all of those available in their humidor. And then maybe they'll have Roma Craft, and maybe they'll have Blackwork Studio, and maybe they'll have Aventura or Postania or something like that. But cigars, it's just, unless it's a massive, massive shop that does a ton of volume, you're hard pressed to find all of the big cigar companies, you know, Drew Estate, Davidoff, Altadis, and General Cigar, and even the top
boutiques,
5 boutique brands, Dunbarton, Roma, Aventura. I'm not naming the top, but Tatuaje, Foundation. Thank you. And Illusione. But it's just hard for shops to carry that much stuff. And nobody has enough time to smoke and rate or even think about smoking every cigar. Yeah, Jay, I agree with you. They are more like wine. Tobacco changes. Yep. And that's just it. The consistency is I don't want to say it's a moving target. I'm saying it's so, I'm not going to use the word impossible, but I will say it's near impossible to say that, yes, this box of Foundation Wise Man Maduro is exactly the same as it was
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And that's even factoring in another wrench in the works.
Changing factories.
Yep. You know, and it's tough to, all a brand can do is their best. And if a brand actually puts forward their best, and you can tell that there's effort in what they're doing, and that there's that they're putting passion and genuine effort, then you can tell in the final product, even if the cigar tastes a little bit different than it did 4 years ago, if it still tastes good and I still enjoy it, then so be it.
You have a good point.
No, the judge in Vitola is better than the Byron. Yeah, and that's I'm not going to disagree with that. It's,
but does that where the cost of cigar comes in a factor?
That's,
so you put a Byron out there. What's a Byron running? $30 now?
It depends on the blend, but yeah, and
you can get
where
a judge for $12, 13, 15, right around there.
Yeah, I think depending on the Vitola, and I mean, I don't know what to say. There's
more categories we can have. We can have the most affordable one. We can have the one that has no limit. Because if that was the case, then I think Mirafelt should be on that list somewhere.
Yeah, because
there's, like he said, the Byron, the Alonso. I think it made last year.
Yeah, the
Alfonso. Excuse me. Yes.
Well, and there have been some great budget entries for cigars that I have absolutely loved over the last few years, and there have been some great, really expensive cigars.
Mm-hmm.
So, example, the Mirabel, which I think the ones we smoked were
$75,
$75, $80 a piece. And then that cigar, then you right next to it, the Intemperates Volstead, $7, $6 for those little sizes. I really like that little size.
Corona.
And I mean, I would happily smoke either one of those, but I'll tell you this: when I'm, as a consumer, when I open up that cabinet door on the front of my humidor, and I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to pick out a cigar, but why am I smoking it? Or I'm going to pick out a handful of cigars. So
then you go back to, is it the event?
Right.
Is it just my daily smoke? Is it
right?
I'm going to meet a buddy that I haven't seen in forever. I'm going to bring these 2 nice, freaking expensive cigars. We're going to smoke and enjoy and make a memory out of it.
Or my son's getting married, or I'm becoming a father for the first time, or whatever it is. for me, and I honestly believe for most consumers, cost does play a factor in an event. Like if you're getting married, you're going to go to if you're going to go buy a bottle of champagne, then you're not going to buy the $9 bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
I mean, unless if you got $9 in your pocket and that's what you can afford, God bless you. Enjoy that $9 bottle of champagne. But if you can afford it, you're going to go for that. You're going to go for that, $80, $90, $200 bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
And you may not like it as much.
Yeah.
You may not like it as much because you may be like, you know what, that Ballatory that sells for like $8, I actually like that better because it's sweeter. Because they're like, oh, I realized I don't like expensive champagne because it's really super dry, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And Coop, no one's complaining. We're talking about it. It's called a discussion. That's what we have on our show.
Yeah.
Discussions. Nobody's complaining, pal.
And I don't remember. 2017, the judge was on the. Yeah, I guess I do remember. God, 2017 feels like it was 100 years ago already.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
Well, fucking COVID screwed everything up. Kind of put 10 years in.
Yeah. That 2020 felt like 10 years wrapped into one. But yeah,
Royals is another good cigar, budget cigar.
And the consensus is, so Coop, I'm pretty sure that's the year the judge came out, that's the year that line debuted from My Father Cigars. And part of that plays into the consensus thing, which if you guys, I'm sure you have, but if there's one person out there listening or watching that doesn't know about the half wheel consensus, it's incredible. And they do a wonderful job with it, where they basically they scour the internet for all the lists and they average that out and put it into a consensus of everybody's lists. And it's very, very common that you see a lot of stuff on the consensus that is never heard from again, not many years later. And it's sort of that flavor of the month, the hot girl of the moment sort of thing. It's like, oh, she's the new girl in school and everybody's trying to get her number. And you see a lot of that on the consensus. You see it, and if you do your own consensus and go looking over the internet for everybody's lists, you'll see, oh, there's this brand, man, and this brand was on everybody's list. Yeah. Well, it turns out this brand was on everybody's list because it was the hot girl of the moment, just came out, and in a lot of cases, and I'm not faulting brands who do this, I don't have any issue one way or another, but there are some brands who there is some gamesmanship to it. Mm-hmm. And there's some brands that send out a lot of cigars to cigar reviewers, especially the newest and
the new hotness,
latest. And that year that they have a big release, they'll send out those cigars to the cigar reviewers. And then when those cigar reviewers get to the PCA trade show to cover the trade show, that brand owner will give them more cigars and throw a big party and maybe take them out to dinner or whatever.
And you can say what you want. That does have an influence.
It does have an influence.
It does have an influence on us.
Yeah,
because you're talking about us. That's us.
Yeah,
that's Coop. That's any guys that do media.
If you look at marketing and human psychology, if you've ever taken any classes about those specific things, about how human psychology relates to marketing and relates to buying choices and relates to consumers relaying information, because that's all of us cigar reviewers, whether it's How About That Cigar or Coop or Developing Palates or Blind Man's Puffer, that the absolute overwhelming majority of us are regular people who have day jobs, and the cigar thing is a hobby. And so we come into it from a consumer perspective with a consumer mindset. And if you've taken classes that deal with this stuff, there's so much that goes into the psychology of buying decisions and the psychology of relaying your consumer ideas to other consumers, word of mouth and things like that. And
shop bias.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, it's endless. And it's there are some companies who are really good at priming that pump, and there are some companies who aren't good at it on purpose because they don't want to participate in that, and I'm fine with that. And there are other companies who aren't good at it because they're just not good at it. They've tried it, and they don't do well with it, so they've either said, I'm not going to participate in this anymore, or they keep trying it the wrong way. But yeah, the psychology of it, and that even goes repeating ourselves again, but the whole psychology of where your mind's at when you're smoking that cigar and what's happening in your life. So
we have another idea about the rarity of the cigar, the exclusiveness of the cigar. Do we start putting that in its own list?
Yeah.
You know, and most of us that do these lists, we're only human. We do have biases. We do have our companies we like. We have our companies that we have made friends with that are actually our friends that actually happen to make cigars.
Yeah.
We have all that. And when they put out a banging cigar, we might, yell a little more about that, or we might,
well, but we also, yes, you're 100% right. We are human and we're going to have our own biases, but at the same time, we try to, and I've talked about this on the show in the past years of doing Cigar of the Year lists and stuff like that. We really do make an effort to be pragmatic, and meaning we make an effort to just take the cigars the way they were smoked in the moment and put that on paper for better or worse.
Yep.
And it lands where it lands. And if, maybe I've had more meals together and heart-to-heart conversations about life and the meaning of life and family and stuff like that with somebody, but in the moment when I'm smoking those cigars and evaluating, okay, where is this going to end up on the list?
I don't do that.
We're gonna do the best we can to just say, you know what, I know I'm closer with this, this other person, and we've had a lot of great heart-to-heart conversations, but I have to put somebody else's cigar ahead of his on the list,
or
hers, and it's by his fancy talk. I speak English goodly. But
there's some cigars that we rate that I'm so excited to smoke, and I'm like, this is gonna be great. And I smoke it, and I'm like, shit, this sucks.
We've all been there. All been there.
But is that part of because the cigar sucks, or your expectations of that company or that cigar is so high? So
yeah,
it works both ways. It could hurt a company too.
And that's another one of the parts of the whole human psychology piece of it is do we build it up so much, or like a movie?
Yeah.
We get so excited for this movie, and we've been waiting for this movie, and just so excited by watching the trailers and everything, and we go and we watch the movie, and it sucks.
The best part of the movies were on the trailer.
Yes. Yeah. And we do that to ourselves as consumers. Our psychology builds it up, and then we get let down. It happens. Dax says a consumer is able to purchase $30 to $50 cigar may never fall on person's list because it just can't afford it. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And
so we as viewers and putting a list together, we can't look at that. We can't say, hey, this guy's most consumers can't buy this $50 cigar. So do we not rate it? Do we leave it off the list? Because we know where our sweet spot is between $8 and $15, just like you said, Dax.
Yep.
But we still have to be honest about it and rate them all.
Yeah. And that's another piece of it too, for all the lists that are out there. There are there are some who are very public about the fact that they do not take cigars sent by companies. So if a company tries to send them cigars, they won't use those cigars. Mm-hmm. They'll go out and they'll purchase. Half Wheel is an example of that. Half Wheel buys every single cigar that they publish a review of. And we can't afford to do that. And the fact is, there are companies that some companies are willing to send samples for review, and we're grateful for that. And we always ask, whether they send them in the mail and we didn't know they were coming, or they give samples to us at the PCA trade show. Because we're all adults here. We say, can we use these cigars for review? And if they say no, guess what? We won't use those cigars for review. If they say yes, then it's open season. Then we're going to be honest about it. And no, we're not going to smoke, sit down and try to review that cigar 5 seconds after we got off the plane from Vegas. It's
not a good idea.
It's got to sit for a while in the humidor and, chill. But I agree
with you, David.
Then there's other brands that don't send samples, and
we're okay with that too.
I don't fault any company who says, no, I'm not going to send samples out to people. I do not fault anybody for that. And if it's something that we believe, and there'll be different reasons, we'll say, okay, are we going to go to a shop and buy these cigars to evaluate them and possibly give that cigar spot on the list? Maybe, but there'll be different reasons. One may be because just us personally, we're like, hey, I'm actually really curious what that cigar's like. I really want to try it. Yeah. Others could be, we see it getting a lot of press elsewhere. We see it getting a lot of mentions on social media. It's just getting a lot of heat, in the social media scene.
Getting the legs on the road.
And we're like, okay, so consumers, there's obviously an interest in this cigar. Mm-hmm. And part of that, like it or not, drives what cigar media publishers do. It's like, okay, we want the consumers to be able to read about the stuff that they want to read about, or have a guest on the show that they want to learn from.
Yep.
And yeah, that's going to drive it, whether we like it or not. So sometimes we'll go out and buy cigars to evaluate just because we know it's getting a lot of heat on social media, and we want to give people another option to learn more about it. Mm-hmm. And other cases, it could just be a whim. It could be a fellow cigar smoker will say, hey, have you tried that cigar? You should try that one. And we're like, no, I haven't. I honestly have never heard of it. So, and we love getting those recommendations.
What's up, brother?
I saw something. What was
Coops? I like Coops' comment.
This one here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the fact that cigar media has justified. Yeah, I agree. And I don't think there's, I'll be honest, I don't really care what somebody thinks of us. I'm a grown up, and the person that I'm dealing with in the cigar business is a grown up. The
word is, I'm a grown ass man.
Well, yes, I'm a grown ass man. And the other word is from that cigar manufacturer.
Yeah.
No. And guess what? I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it.
No.
I go to somebody and I say, hey, could you send us a couple of those? We'd love to give them a try and evaluate them. And that cigar manufacturer can say, no, I'm cool with that.
Yep.
I'm cool with that. And if I find a spot where I'm able to buy them without, breaking the bank, which is the small bank, I'll do that. And if I'm not, then it's not going to happen. I'm not going to, stay up nights because somebody said I'm not going to send you. It's fine.
Yeah.
We don't care. It's totally cool.
My wife would rather I didn't, but
yeah. Yeah, and Coop rebuys them for the end of the year consideration. That's and I applaud that, and it's not cheap. And there's a lot of people out there reviewing cigars who spend a lot of money on cigar samples. And there's some that don't spend any money on cigars. There's some, I'm not going to mention any names, but there are some bloggers or review sites or whatever out there.
You can tell
that that have never spent a penny out of their own pockets on cigars to review.
Yeah.
And am I going to fault them for that? No. Is it the way I want to do things? No. Yeah, and David, nothing wrong with taking samples as long as you're upfront about it. And that was one of the things when we were still doing cigar reviews on How About That Cigar. It always says, was this cigar provided by the manufacturer or was this cigar purchased by How About That Cigar? And that information was also disseminated in the end of the year list. And we'd say, I'd go through all the data breakdowns, of the top 10 cigars, 6 of them were purchased by How About That Cigar, or the average, and I go through scoring averages too. Of all the cigars that were purchased, the average score for the year was 85. And for all cigars that were provided by the manufacturers, the average score was 86 or whatever. I'm pretty sure, I would have to go back and look at this, but I'm pretty sure every cigar of the year list that How About That Cigar ever did, the average, when we went back through the averages of every review published during that year, the average score for a purchased cigar was slightly higher than the average score for a cigar that was given to us by the manufacturer.
A good cigar is going to be a good cigar, whether we get it or we pay for it.
Exactly. So we really never want to allow the fact that somebody gave us a cigar. We don't want to allow that to bump it into a higher score bracket. So that, I guess, brings us to the whole reviewing thing for us as How About That Cigar, because those of you who watch this show, and for each and every one of you, again, we are beyond grateful. For those of you who watch this show and have spent time on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com, you may or may not have noticed, not one single time in the calendar year 2024 did How About That Cigar publish a cigar review. Not once. And that's the first time that ever happened during a calendar year in the history of How About That Cigar.
But
I want to go into a little bit of the why.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go deeply into the why because it's personal, but I needed time for other things.
Family. Period. So it happens sometimes.
End of story.
Yep.
And I was absolutely dedicated to giving that time to my family in 2024. And because that's where the time was needed. And if that means How About That Cigar because How About That Cigar is a passion project and a hobby, and we're grateful for every last bit of it. But if How About That Cigar in 2024 had to suffer in the form of no published cigar reviews, and yet my family was made all the better because of me giving it that time, so be it.
So be it.
So that's my sorry, not sorry sort of approach to why there were no published cigar reviews in 2024. Now, because of that, there was a lot of debating and like in my own heart and head, like, well, we haven't earned. So I'll sort of try to walk you through my own personal mental tug of war.
Okay.
Oh, if you're gonna publish a cigar of the year list, you have to have cigar reviews to back up that cigar of the year list. oh, if you're going to do a list, if you didn't do any cigar reviews, then you didn't earn the right to publish the cigar. And again, this is just me walking you through my mental tug of war. If you didn't publish any cigar reviews that year, then you didn't earn the right to publish the Cigar of the Year list and blah, 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 and all this stuff going through my head. But the fact is, even without publishing and printing those cigar reviews on howaboutthatcigar.com, we still are evaluating cigars on a constant basis throughout the year.
And I don't know if you guys know, it's not just, oh yeah, this cigar is good, and then we put a rating out. It takes work. It takes time to do that.
Right.
And we're smoking a few cigars a week. So if I send him 5 or 6 reviews in a week, plus his 5 or 6 reviews in a week, that takes time away from what he wanted to improve on.
And that's when you say smoking 5, 6 cigars, that's just cigars we're evaluating, like actually paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I kind of disagree with you on we didn't earn that right.
No, that's not, I was saying that was part of my mental battle.
I paid for a lot of cigars last year. I think we earned that right to review cigars.
Yeah. And
I think our viewers like our list. They like to hear our palettes, and you're in my palette. Maybe 3 or 4 cigars on both lists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have different palettes, and I also think that's what makes it special.
You know, and it's funny too, because there have been examples multiple times where, you know, we'll smoke something and you'll be like, I didn't like that cigar. And I'm like, you're crazy. That cigar is great. But it doesn't happen a lot. It's pretty rare that, I mean, usually it'll be like, yeah, I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was that great. Or, you know, it could be you loved it and I thought it was just all right, or vice versa. But so all that being said, we talked about it today for a good long while. And we are going to publish on the website and announce on the show in 2 weeks a Cigar of the Year list for 2024. It'll be a top 10 list as far as that. Every time How About That Cigar has done a list, it has been a top 10 list. We don't have enough we barely have enough bandwidth to do a top 10 list, let alone what some places do, like a top 20 or 25 or 30 list. Good. God bless you for doing a list that big. We just don't have the bandwidth for that. So 10, it worked for David Letterman. It'll work for us.
And the guess, I like that quote a lot. I love that quote right there. Your priority should be God, wife, kids, work, and then your hobbies.
Yeah. And that's really what, 2024 was about for me, is that, I spent the vast majority of 2024 coming to terms with the fact that my priorities were completely out of whack, and B, putting in a shit ton of work to get those priorities back aligned with the way that was going to give my family the best version of me. So, because it's like the whole thing with the, something goes wrong with the airplane, what do the flight attendants tell you? Put on your own mask first before you help others. Because if you don't put on your own mask first, you're going to be dead, and then you're not going to be any good to anybody else to help them. So that's basically what 2024 was me getting myself back to a level spot where I could actually be helpful to those around me.
Dax is another good one.
Not having cigars, and I appreciate that. It's everybody. Everybody's got a different system. Everybody's got a different way of doing things, and we still love to sample and evaluate and learn about the cigars that we're smoking on a weekly basis. Enjoying the flavors and aromas of the cigars is great, and learning how to sort of make those accessible and put them on paper and help people understand them. But the stories of the people who make them and the stories of the people who work in the factories and work in the fields, and even the people who own and work at at the shops. Yeah. So many awesome stories from people in the cigar world, and even the consumers. I mean, you guys who watch this show and listen to this show, you guys who, consume the content that we put out. We continue to learn tons and tons from the people who consume this content, and it makes us better at what we do, every day.
Thanks, David.
So what I miss?
Let me check my notes.
Yeah, check the old notes.
Getting old here.
I gotta put on the. I'm looking at your handwriting. God bless you. You write really small. I don't know how you read that.
That's why I got the glasses. Another thing is, we kind of hit on it earlier, and it's just one of my notes that I put down. How does all right, let's say we like the judge.
Yeah.
And the normal consumer sees the judge. They don't understand that each Vitola gives you a different flavor, a different nuance to it. So when we say the judge, or anybody says the judge is a good cigar, that normal person that might tune in, or that normal person that's reading a top 10, they don't know. They just see the judge. They don't know it's, whatever, a Toro or a Robusto. They're just going to go to their local tobacconist and say, hey, I heard that judge is good. Let me get a judge.
Yeah.
So in their list, should we put the Vitola, or should we just put the cigar?
I have always put the Vitola. That's just my personal I've always put the Vitola because, in my personal opinion, it's for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, it can make it a really different cigar. And two is, like, a lot of consumers know, even if they've maybe, let's say they've never smoked a judge, or let's say, gosh, I'm trying to think of an example here. Okay, so 2 years ago, how about that cigar of the year was the Crux du Connoisseur number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically I didn't put the Crux du Connoisseur. I put the number 4 because as much as I enjoy the other sizes in the du Connoisseur, that number 4 is just on the money. And I think this blend sings in that.
But it's also one of your favorite Vitolas.
It's also one of my favorite Vitolas, which...
So does that have anything to do with it?
Absolutely. Bias plays into it, most definitely, because that's the person reviewing the cigar. They're going to... it's just like somebody who, if they're a food reviewer and they really enjoy spicy food, they're probably going to give higher scores and recommendations to places that make to restaurants that make spicy food versus restaurants that don't spice their food very much.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. So preference for me is medium ring gauge, although what is now considered small ring gauge.
Yeah.
But the judge, there's different ring gauges available in the judge, and the judge is if we're just talking about that one cigar individually, I'll be honest, it's low for me on the list of where I would rank all the blends from my father. The judge is honestly pretty low for me.
Really?
I love so many of the blends coming from my father's cigars. I'm such a fan of my father's cigars. But the judge in all their pantheon of brands, I'm sorry, but the judge is not even in my top 5, maybe not even in my top 10.
I'm different. The judge is in my top 3.
Okay. So, and it's just not my favorite of their blends. There's so many things that they're making. I would still put that classic, and I know what it's my father versus Don Pepin, but that's still my father.
Same family.
I'll still take a Don Pepin Blue, classic Don Pepin Blue over a Judge.
I would.
So,
and Tony, you're right. We could do it, but as he said earlier, this is our hobby. If we had to put a top 10 premium cigars and then boutique, and honestly, I don't know if I could put premium. I'm more of a boutique smoker. I'll be honest with you. I smoke a lot more boutique cigars than I do premium or legacy brands.
Because we still buy the cigars that we smoke on a weekly basis. We still buy most of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would love to do. There's so many different things, and we talked about this earlier. There are so many different cool things we would love to do with like this kind of list and that kind of list, and this, concepts for different things, whether it's for publishing on the website or doing reviews, or for different ideas for shows or places we want to visit and travel to, and all this. It comes down to money and bandwidth for us. It's like we don't have the time and we don't have the capital to do all these things. And we try to do the best we can with what we know that we can actually get done.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, okay, we're going to say, yes, we definitely have the bandwidth for that. So therefore, we're going to put that we're definitely doing that list, and we're going to put a shit ton of effort into it versus do 10 things sort of half-assed and not really be able to afford to do it right. And then
we don't want to cheat you guys.
Yeah. We want to put effort into it.
And another one we talked about it briefly was some guys put company of the year out, We talked about how about putting the most impactful company of the year that year.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
So if a company has, what was it? Oh, so, okay. So we said, let's say in a given calendar year, let's say of all the premium cigar brands in a given calendar year, let's say, and I'm just making this number up off the top of my head. Let's say there's 5,000 new cigar releases in 2024. And you just take that number and then average it out across all premium cigar brands. Now, some cigar companies aren't going to release any new cigars, and others are going to release like 9 new cigars.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe let's say you average that out and it's 4 cigars per company. Which one of those cigar companies had the 4 best, consistent, talked about, publicized, sales,
mm-hmm.
social media buzz that year? Which company was the hot company for?
And we both agreed. We got to say Espinosa.
Espinosa was,
and with Guy Fieri kind of leading that right now.
Yeah, continuing to give Espinosa so much, but even beyond
it's helping the industry. Period. It's opening eyes to people that watch Triple D.
Yeah.
Show. He smokes on there. You see him with cigars on there. He's helping the industry. So therefore, I think Espinosa should be company of the year or most influence of the year. And
I feel like they're just continuing on this run that's gonna. I just don't see it slowing down because the whole knuckle sandwich thing started a couple years ago, and it's continued, and it did really well in 2024. Plus, outside of the knuckle sandwich line, then you've got the stuff from Espinosa, like the continuing to make those killer Las Seis Provenças blends and the Shikaka and the TAA.
Yeah.
So many good things coming from them.
La Bamba.
And the Warhead from this year. And that now looking ahead, it's not released, so this will be part of 2025. But the new knuckle sandwich that is coming, that is going to be shipping, Hector said hopefully by April. good Lord, you are going to want to get a little spoiler alert for 2025. You are going to want to buy this cigar. Unbelievably good. Maybe the best knuckle sandwich cigar I've had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like there's so many different things you can do with a list at the end of the year. And there's ways to do it. And again, we're not here to say
anybody else.
One person's way to do their list sucks and ours is great, or vice versa, or any of that. We do have opinions about the way some places do their lists, and some of it we like and some of it we don't like. But guess what? That's life. There's a lot of stuff that we do on How About That Cigar that other, people who do Cigar Meter are like, yeah, I don't really like the way those guys over there at How About That Cigar do that. That's cool. That's cool. And if anybody ever wants to talk to us about that, we are open books. Please, let's sit down. My address. Let's sit down and have a conversation about it.
Sit down and talk.
Because there's a good chance if we actually just sit down and talk about it, we're going to make each other better at the end of the day.
Yep.
So let's just keep striving for that. What else on your?
Why is David turned mean? Why does he want to give me another family?
No, he wants to give you a cigar.
Oh, okay. I'll be waiting for mine when I see it.
Pretty sure that's what that means.
Hello, Robert.
Hey, Robert. What else of note was on your list? Your little
I think we hit most of it.
We hit
wow.
I
think we hit most of it.
That's awesome.
So we're getting back to you guys in the future, we are getting back to reviewing this year.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
So that might start we'll put it this way. That'll start after we do our top 10 on the 20th. And I think we got some bangers. Warped is a good cigar. I haven't smoked enough of it, but I've heard a lot of good things about those 3 cigars. Actually, you put up there, guys.
Yeah, Warped. I feel like if there was
they're turning around.
If there was an award for comeback player of the year, I think Warped would win it for 2024.
Yep.
Because they had some they got a little. Not that they were making bad cigars. I was just confused and uncertain about some of the directions they were taking for a few years, because they came out of the gate so strong back, with the oh gosh, of course but you guys know what I'm talking about. 4 or 5 years ago, they came out of the gate so strong with so many great blends and tons of buzz and all this stuff, and then things got, in my personal estimation, just a little bit cloudy, and I would say 2024 was a huge comeback of the year, player of the year, comeback player of the year award for Warped. And the Saunter may or may not, I'm not going to give anything away, but it's on the list.
So David asked a great question.
Cigars being reviewed, how can we contribute?
How can the viewers help us?
Oh, so which cigars get reviewed is sort of,
put it this way. If you're watching a show Monday night and you smoked a good cigar, say, hey, maybe you guys should go out and try this.
Yeah, that
would be the best. And we're like, all right.
We really love getting recommendations from you guys. So anytime you're watching, throw it in the comments and say, try this. You can email, our email addresses are on the website, so you can email us and say, hey, try this cigar. You really got to try this cigar. And if there's that really is what helps us out more than anything, is recommendations, because sometimes we'll get recommendations and we're like, all right, I guess
we'll try it.
And we've gotten recommendations before for cigars. Honestly, I was like, I don't really think I want to try that cigar. And somebody is like, no, you got to smoke that cigar.
So Domain was somebody that told, hey, you guys got to try these guys out. They're new. Mm-hmm. Told us the factory they're coming from. We're like, we got to try them out. We get them on the show. Boom. Yeah. And Warp, I don't think Warp got bought out this year. Did they?
Well, Gellis. So Kyle Gellis, I think it's possible that Gellis Family Cigars is just like a sub brand of Warped. But as far as if any money changed hands or if there were any financial things that happened behind the scenes, I don't think so. But I honestly don't know. I think Gellis Family Cigars was just created to be sort of a sub brand under the Warped umbrella, but that's just my estimation. Apologies if I'm misspeaking on that.
Sober Cigar, I watch you on Instagram, so I know what you're putting out there.
Oh, and the Barba Amarilla, Principal Martinique, are those DTT? Is that Dunbarton Tobacco? Is that Steve Saka cigars?
I don't.
Barba Amarilla.
I smoke a lot of them.
Barba Amarilla. I thought that was Aventura, which I have had.
Yes.
Lampert Ocean Breeze. I've smoked a couple Lampert cigars, and I can't remember if Ocean Breeze is one of them.
The Lamperts I smoked were expensive. They weren't $13. I'd like to put some more time into learning about Lampert cigars. Small batch.
Oh, small batch. Okay.
Thanks, brother.
Because I've smoked a couple Lampert cigars and they were good. I really did enjoy them. I just need to learn more about them and maybe spend.
Here, hold on a second.
Smoking.
Hold on a second. Let me get my list out. We're gonna have them on the show this year.
So yeah, that'd be it. And that's another thing, guys, is when it comes to the big Monday night show. Again, we love having people on the cigar show that we can learn about their stories. And we also enjoy the fact that we can be even a little bit of a platform to young up and coming cigar brands, which we've done multiple times. So if you know of anybody that could be a good candidate for a guest spot on How About That Cigar Live on a Monday night, let us know. And
we'll try our hardest to get them on.
Yeah. And let us know. And if you happen to have, if it's a cigar brand owner and they happen to have you happen to have a little bit of a connection with them on, Instagram or something like that, shoot them a message and, mention How About That Cigar. You just, get us, help us get in contact with them, and we'll get, try to get them on the show. The Sulu and Black Pearl cigars. Sulu and Black Pearl.
Buy Black Pearl.
I'm thinking Queen's Pearl that's from Aventura. Yep. And then what was
King's Gold.
King's Gold. That's what King's Gold. And so I was mixing that up in my head.
Queen's Pearl. All right.
Sorry, my hamster fell off the wheel briefly. Randy Wheeler and Glenn Ratcliffe. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Didn't mean to cause the flood of recommendation. No,
we love that show.
Absolutely love it. And if it happens to be like after the show's over and you don't want to leave the comment, on Facebook or whatever, just go on howaboutthatcigar.com and you'll find our email addresses. You can email one of us and send us somebody's contact.
Or if you don't email, just go on Instagram and find us and
send a message. Send a IM on
to a huge nerd or cigar.
Yeah, just do at HBT Cigar. Do huge nerd. I probably won't. I don't. That's
flood his Instagram.
That's my personal Instagram, and I honestly haven't used it in so long. I only log into the How About That Cigar Instagram anymore. So yeah. So I'm wondering,
is it time?
Is it?
I think it is. I think it's time.
All right. The first time in 2025, it is now time for this week's Numero de los Muertos. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this one's weird. I mean, they're always weird, right? What am I talking about?
Yeah.
So this is another one of those where the number
excuse me,
is 1.
I'm going to have to go with, I haven't said it in a year. I haven't said it since I've been on the show. And I'm going to have to use this one. I feel confident in my position on the show now. I'm going to have to use this. Is it anal beads?
It is not anal beads.
All right.
It's a very good guess. The number is 1. And I will say this happened in the 1600s.
Jeez. What? That's when you were in high school, wasn't it?
No, that was the 1800s. That was the 1800s. I was in high school.
That was when Coop was in high school.
Yeah.
Coop, you still here?
Yeah, this happened in the 1600s. One person, and this is so weird. I mean, I almost, instead of making everybody try to guess, because you never ever will, but I just want to sort of read it from Wikipedia. But
all right, let's get a couple guesses.
So weird.
First. Land or sea?
Land. Pecked to death by a bald eagle. No. Struck by a falling coconut. No, not struck by a falling coconut. Land. This happened on land.
Was it in the United States?
It was not in the United States.
Country of Oregon, please. Travel box, and I bet that happens more than just once.
I'm looking. Where did it happen? All right, give me a sec here. This happened in Denmark. Denmark in the 1600s.
That would be Vikings, wouldn't it?
Only Jose Blanco would know. Yeah. I'll ask. I should hit him up on WhatsApp, and he's probably like, "Oh yeah, I knew that guy."
Butter turning.
No. Eaten by a turtle with
no teeth.
Oh, that I would love it if that was the actual cause. Trampled by oxen. No.
Pierced by the front of the boat on a Viking ship.
Oh wow, that's I love the just thoughtfulness of that guess. No.
Shit.
And 1601. That was not the timeline, not the right timeline for the Vikings, but you know, it's okay. I forgive you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Death by a stampede of groundhogs. I would pay money to see a stampede of groundhogs. That's got to be hilarious. Pneumonia after stuffing a chicken carcass with snow to learn whether Oh,
you said it was weird.
No, that is weird. That's not the answer, but it's weird. Drown in a barrel of mackerel. No, but that's awesome. Killed by a herd of birds, flock of seagulls. No. Eating a tulip.
What kind of tulips?
Are tulips poisonous?
Depends what kind of tulips you're talking about.
Oh. They can be. Cannon shot the wrong way. No.
Swallowed. Oh, as you said, land. I was going to say swallowed by a whale.
All right. This was an illness.
Eating nightshade?
No.
Is it a particular event?
It wasn't like a major historic event. No. But it was a.
I think a lot more died of scurvy than one. But I don't know.
No, this was not scurvy.
Botox.
Botox.
Assassination.
It was not assassination.
I need to put my glasses on. All right. I'm getting sleepy.
All right, here we go. So, In 1601, a Danish astronomer by the name of Tycho Brahe. Sorry, let me get back to the original cause of death part of the article.
His telescope fell back and crushed his skull.
He contracted a bladder or kidney ailment after attending a banquet in Prague. He died 11 days later at the age of 54. Sorry, my eyeballs are getting all smoked out. According to Kepler's firsthand account, Kepler was a biographer. Tycho had refused to leave the banquet to relieve himself because it would have been a breach of etiquette. After he returned home, he was no longer able to urinate except eventually into in very small quantities and under excruciating pain. The night before he died, he suffered from a delirium during which he was frequently heard to exclaim that he hoped he would not seem to have lived in vain. Before dying, he urged Kepler to finish some work that astronomer-ish, whatever work he was working on. Okay, investigations many years later suggested that Tycho may not have died from urinary problems, but instead from mercury poisoning. It was speculated that he had been intentionally poisoned, and two main suspects were his assistant, Kepler, who also eventually went on to write biography, and then, sorry, now I got to put my glasses back on because my eyes are going bonkers. In February 2010, the Prague city authorities approved a request by Danish scientists to exhume the remains, and the scientists there was not enough mercury present to substantiate murder, and there were no lethal levels of any poisons present. So the findings determined that it was likely that he did die from some sort of
urinary tract infection.
Yes, urinary tract infection that was possibly exacerbated by alchemistic activities. That's all it says. Alchemistic activities. That could mean a lot of different things. Maybe he was taking drugs
that clogged his penis up. I like the kidney stone idea.
Yeah. So that was this week's Numero de los Muertos. All right.
I don't know if you're gonna make it.
Bro. I know I got some in my eye.
Mercury.
It's mercury. It is now time to reveal this week's Spirit of Mystery, brought to us by Postania Cigars. Gonna reach over here and get. I got a serious case of what's that great old song? Smoke it's in your eyes. I got smoke in my eyes. So this bourbon is definitely hype. It seems like I haven't had any of it, but seriously, it's half gone because this is a very, very heavy pour. Yes, David, I can do a better one next week. I had very little time to prepare this week because I was thinking until right before we went live, I was like, we're not even going to do a Numero de los Muertos tonight. And Raul was like, are you crazy? You got to do a Numero de los Muertos.
Our viewers would kill us.
I know. So this is it tastes very high proof. It's funky. It doesn't have a ton of sweetness, which I tend to like at least a little bit of natural sweetness in my bourbons. And this really doesn't have any of that. It's got funk. It's got spice.
It's 118.
118. Yeah, that's a little hot. I would say that it is. I don't know if, I mean, it might be a rye, but it just tastes to me that it's like it's actually a bourbon, that it's 51% corn in the mash bill, but it's high on the rye side of things.
So let me just tell the viewers.
I don't know.
So all the bourbons or whiskeys or tequilas or whatever he's going to drink for the next few months is all stuff he's drank already at my house or on the show. I will let you know when it's something new.
Wow.
To the tasting.
And you know for a fact I've already had this before.
Yes.
Oh, you said that with extreme confidence.
I poured it.
You poured it when I drank it before?
Yep.
At your house?
Yep.
Is this a rye or is it just a high rye bourbon? It's a rye. Oh gosh, I'm not good with ryes because I don't drink them as often as I do bourbons.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay, I'll take it.
It is a green and teal label on the bottle.
It's not locally distilled, is it?
No.
Green and teal.
No whiskey. It's not Whiskey Pig.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's green or teal, or hold on. Baby blue and green, actually.
It's not Dickel, is it?
Nope.
Is it Barrel?
Yep.
It's Barrel. Is this the Barrel? Is this the store pick from that place in Burnsville?
Nope.
But it's Barrel.
It's Barrel.
But there's something else to it, isn't there?
No. It's just a barrel.
Is that it? Well, let me see then.
He's got it right there. Seagrass.
Oh, Seagrass. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Rye
Nice
whiskey
guy.
finished in Martinique rum. See, and I remember it tastes funky right now. I'm really not,
because you let it sit out for 3 hours at air.
we did. It did sit out for a long time, but it's yeah, because we just sat and talked for a long time before the show. But when I had this before, there was so much natural sweetness to it from that rum finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably sitting out in a glass for 2 hours, all that sweetness was like,
see ya,
screw you, I'm out of here. But still good pour. Really, really high proof. Not well. I mean, it's not like 130 or whatever, but you mix the 118 with a rye, that spiciness just pops like crazy. So, but definitely a good pour. So that was this week's Spirit of Mystery, brought to us by Postania Cigars. It is now time for the lightning round, brought to us by JC Newman. And once again, I don't have that pulled up.
So
either.
we're actually, this lightning round, we're going to change it up a little bit.
Oh, right on.
We're going to go straight NFL picks.
Okay, I like it. And these will be brought to you by JC Newman Cigar Company, America's oldest family-owned premium cigar maker, creators of the popular Brick House, Perla Del Mar, Diamond Crown, and The American. JC Newman Cigar Company operates out of their 113-year-old, or possibly now 114-year-old, El Reloj Cigar Factory in historic Cigar City, Tampa, Florida. For more information on their cigars or visitor experience, please visit jcnewman.com.
So, the Raiders might be looking for a new coach. Buffalo and the Broncos.
Buffalo.
Ravens and Steelers.
I mean,
it's lightning round.
On paper, Ravens, but the Ravens don't have a great record in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They tend to lose to teams they should beat.
Chargers and Texans.
Texans.
Eagles and Green Bay. Bet with your mind, not with your heart. You guys can answer these too, please. Please do.
Philly.
And Tampa Bay and Washington.
Well, Washington, Baker Mayfield's great, but Washington is playing out of their minds right now.
Do you know? Never mind. I'll leave that one alone. And LA and the Vikings.
Minnesota's going to win.
So I'll give you mine real quick. Buffalo, Ravens, Chargers, Philly, Tampa Bay, and LA.
Okay. So you went the opposite of almost all my picks except for Philly and
Buffalo.
And the Ravens. I said the Ravens, even though I think they're gonna win, but I get the Ravens just have such a crappy playoff record.
They're just such a better team this year than they've ever been. I think.
We'll see.
Super Bowl.
I don't want to make a Super Bowl prediction until the next round of the playoffs.
That's not the question, Marla.
I can't answer because I don't know who's in the conference championship games. So I can't say.
Just pick.
I can't.
One of the 7 teams.
I can't. It's like asking me to pick who's gonna win the World Series before
the Yankees.
The wild card round even starts.
So is the Yankees. Derrick Henry is a beast, and he's the reason why they are gonna.
Yeah, Derrick Henry has
beat the Steelers, and the Steelers just look like shit the last 5 games.
Yeah,
and then I think it's gonna be Buffalo and Philadelphia.
You don't think Detroit can beat Philly?
No,
really. Wow. Okay.
I think they're going to go blow for blow as far as scoring. And I think their defense is a little better, even though they looked great last night against the Vikings. I think Philly's defense is better than theirs.
Well, okay. So I won't give a prediction
against the Chiefs.
I was just going to say, I won't give a prediction on which 2 teams I think are going to play in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I'll give a prediction on who I know is going to win the Super Bowl, and that's Kansas City Chiefs. Because they're just going to win. You know, that's
first 3-peat.
They're going to win.
I don't know. I think some of the defenses out there are going to.
I mean, Buffalo has the absolute best chance in the AFC to stop the Kansas City Chiefs. Their
defense sucks.
Yeah, but their offense is so good that they just end up being high scoring games.
Thanks, Coop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this year Detroit has a slight edge. If it comes down to Philly and Detroit, I think this year Detroit has a slight edge. And Detroit gets home field advantage over Philly.
Do you know what's gonna kill Detroit?
The curse?
Nope. Campbell and his fucking decisions. You can't go for 4th down all the time.
He's toned that down. Actually, that was LaFleur's big issue in week 18 was going for it on 4th down and making mind-boggling, just mistaken play calls on 4th down, trying to go for it.
I also think
Campbell has toned down his gung-ho mentality a little bit.
Yeah. And I think also it's a copycat league and more people are doing it. That's why your boy over there in Green Bay is doing it.
I'm pretty sure he learned his lesson. You take the points when you can get the points.
I think the Vikings should have done that last night too.
Yeah, I agree. Kevin O'Connell is as good of a coach as I think Kevin O'Connell is. I think he made some blunders.
I think he got out coached last night. And it didn't help that Sam Darnold was Sam Darnold. He showed why he is Sam Darnold.
Well, he he had no protection. They were letting the defense get all over him.
He was holding the ball too long.
He did miss quite a few open guys. Yeah. There were because you go back and you watch that game from the high camera view. There were at least 4 red zone plays where he completely didn't even see the open man.
What he does is he's already got in his mind he's going to Hawkinson. He's already got his mind he's going to JJ.
Yeah.
That's what I've been noticing the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And he won't let go of that.
Well, and how many of those close throws did defenders knock away from JJ?
Yeah.
Because they had to be in a tight window, but the defender just got the fingertips in there enough to get that ball knocked away because he refuses to look, especially in the red zone. It's like you just go to you got other guys on the team.
You got a hell of a lot of good players.
And Aaron Jones, phenomenal player.
Fucking Fragile. He's French.
Why don't they use him in the crossing game and the slant game more?
Yeah.
Or the screens? Because especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I think the Rams are going to beat them next week because they're going to play them just like they played them the first time. Quick dink and dunce, which fucks up our whole defense.
I don't think the Rams are ready. I don't think the Rams are ready for how mentally prepared because I believe Kevin O'Connell is going to have that team mentally prepared for this game. And they're going to be, the Vikings are going to go in there pissed off, but in like a focused kind of pissed off.
That's for David.
You have so much time to.
You get 2 of them.
We have been called out. Yes, you. Yes. That is a legitimate thing to point out. Yeah.
Well, we thank you guys for watching. I mean, he's going to do some more reading, but we appreciate you joining all the time, guys. And David, we appreciate your loyalty, fucker.
Real quick, let's do notable smokables. So my notable this week was the one that I just finished smoking. The one you just finished smoking too. Catastrophic Failure from Postania Cigars. And yeah, it's a funny name because it's the opposite of a catastrophic failure. It's a really nice blend. And you all know I love a box press. So Catastrophic Failure from Postania. Definitely look it up and find it and smoke it. Good stuff.
Mine is the Don Pepin ERH. It's I think it's exclusive only to Tobacco Grove right now in Minnesota.
I believe you're correct. Yes. I need to. God, it's been a minute since I've been out to Tobacco Grove. I need to get out.
Go there when Cole's not there.
I like Cole.
Me too. Mostly. I like his knowledge, but the way he delivers it makes me want to fucking choke him out.
Doesn't bother me a bit. I gotta make it out there though.
I got time.
So all right, coming attractions and that stuff. We have some, we've already talked about a little bit of it. So next week, which is, what is next week? The 10th? Next Monday? 13th. Next Monday on the 13th, we've got Mo from Patina Cigars. First time ever guest on How About That Cigar Live. So glad that we are finally able to get Mo on the show. Then Monday, January 20th. I almost said July 20th. January 20th, 2025. Cigar of the Year list from How About That Cigar for the year 2024.
Finally.
And then closing out the month of January, none other than Jeff Borshowitz from Corona Cigar Company on January 27th. So be sure to tune in for all of that stuff. So that is all we have for this evening. We want to say again, thank you so much to our viewers and listeners for being the best part of How About That Cigar Live. Thanks for letting us ramble on a little bit this evening. We really do appreciate it. If you guys have questions for any of us, you can email us on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Be sure to follow us on all your favorite social media platforms. You will find us at HBT Cigar. Be sure to click on all the big, beautiful buttons, the like button, the follow button, the subscribe button. And if you listen on your favorite audio podcast platform, make sure that you follow us and subscribe on that platform so you never miss any episodes of How About That Cigar Live. And of course, until we see you guys next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Any comments, opinions, viewpoints, or statements presented or uttered by guests on the HBTC podcast, HBTC live video streams, and all other media from HBT Media LLC are solely those of the individual and do not necessarily represent the opinions or viewpoints of How About That Cigar or its parent company, HBT Media LLC, any of our advertising partners, or the premium cigar industry. The primary purpose of How About That Cigar is to entertain and to encourage activity and growth within the community of people who enjoy or want to learn about the enjoyment of premium cigars.